Hi and welcome to this modern lesson about the One iPad classroom. So the aim of this lesson is to talk you through the reasons why it really is worthwhile to get started with an iPad integration, even if you just have one iPad in the classroom. I'm going to talk through some of the things that you could do, but as a sort of forewarning, all of these things are dependent on your ability to put your iPad screen up on whatever the main screen in your classroom is. So whether that is an interactive whiteboard or just a projector, you need to have the facility to do that. The two simplest ways to make that happen are either with Apple TV or some other AirPlay enabled downloads such as Reflector, which is what you're seeing on your screen at the moment. Either of those options work really well for the things that I'm going to talk about shortly. So on a really basic level, why is one iPad in a classroom going to make a difference? Well, I believe that just the freedom to move away from the front of the classroom is going to change the way that you teach. So if you did nothing else other than want a mobile whiteboard, and a sophisticated example of that would be something like this, explain everything. I'll just load up a blank screen. If this was all you had, this is the only change that you made, you have your whiteboard as you would at the front of the room, but this time as you're teaching, you're walking around the classroom, and now you are a teacher on the move. That in itself could make all the difference, whether it's this or you use Keynote instead of PowerPoint, and you're just walking around the room, or maybe you're even sitting with your class rather than being the teacher at the front of the room dictating in any connotation of that word to your class. This could really change the dynamic. I've seen it, I've done it. I do believe that the change is a positive one. It's a real sense of community can be built, a different kind of trust. You sitting with or moving around and interacting with your students whilst delivering information. So if nothing else, that could make a really positive change. So this is Explain Everything, which you may have watched a lesson about already. So using this, as I say, or Keynote, could have a really positive impact on the way that you're delivering your lessons. Similarly, all the usual things, so Keynote, Explain Everything, YouTube, you can just fire up YouTube anywhere in the classroom and deliver the video via your Apple TV, so that's great. Maybe it's a Prezi, so you can build your Prezi online but deliver it through your iPad. And again, the fact that you can walk around and deliver that information as you choose is really positive. Okay, but how about doing things that you couldn't have done with an interactive whiteboard? So forget about the fact that you can move around. Here's something new that you can do with your iPad. iBooks. Any book you teach, whether it's obviously I'm an English teacher, whether it's a piece of literature or a textbook, you can put what you're reading up on the screen for everybody to see. If you're using iBooks, you can annotate, you can make notes, you can just fire up the dictionary for them as you're reading, bringing up keywords. Bad choice, but firing up the dictionary, everyone can keep up with what's going on. You can do highlighting, you can make notes, as I say, that they can see what you're writing, and that is really powerful. I work a lot with foreign language students who are studying English, and this really works for them. They're being able to see what I'm doing as I'm reading, what I'm highlighting, what I'm writing, very, very powerful. Okay, so iBooks, one iPad, works really, really well. The other thing, of course, you can do is deliver iTunes U material, whether that is material from other universities that you want your students to engage with, or it might be material that you've written that you want to deliver and personalise their learning experience, even just with the one iPad. And the other thing is, of course, there are some just really, really good sort of one-off apps that do one thing really well that you might want your students to experience. So science is a great resource for this. So perhaps you want to introduce them to the brain, and just being able to do this, being able to show them this app because it is beautiful, so well crafted, do all sorts of different things. This can change the dynamic of a lesson, this sort of interactivity. And this sort of moves me on to the next opportunity that even one iPad offers. So you're doing this work, you're showing them this incredible app. You can give your iPad to a student and let them interact with it. They can show you what it is you wanted to see, whether if they can identify a particular part of the brain. Maybe you've just put an equation up on Explain Everything. So if that's all you've done, and you hand them the iPad and you say, okay, show us your workings, how do you figure that out? That can be a really positive experience, both for the student that you give the iPad to, but also all his peers who see how he is working through this problem. Right, so let's just talk very briefly about the kind of workflow that you might go through just with one iPad in the classroom. I'll just show you something that I would typically do just as part of a normal lesson. So let's say I'm reading this text with my class and we get to something that I think is particularly important, but I can't make enough notes on the screen to do what I want to do with it. So all I do, take a screenshot, see that happen there because of the flash, shut down iBooks, flick to Explain Everything, and then I just go to my screenshot, crop the little bit of text that I really want to focus in on, load that into my page, and now I can just talk about exactly the specific details, whatever it is I want to highlight. So a regular workflow that takes a lot longer on a whiteboard at the front of the classroom, partly because you wouldn't necessarily have access to this text, certainly because it's not free of copyright, and you're very unlikely to get a PDF version, so you'd have to scan in the page, load it into your flip chart. This is instant. We can be having a discussion, realise we've hit something important that needs further discussion, and immediately it's up on the screen. So that is a really simple but effective way that you might use your one iPad in the classroom, just using those two apps. Okay, so the next thing that you can do to take this probably to a useful next step is, obviously your students don't all have an iPad, so they're going to be working probably with pens and paper. So it is a difficult challenge to merge technology with the traditional old format of paper. How does that work? Well, here's one way, really simple, that you can work with that. Simply fire up your camera, go over to your student, take a picture of their work, go back into Explain Everything, for example, load up that screenshot, and there it is. There's your student's work, and now you can talk to the class and the student about this problem area. But what is it that has led to that question mark? What haven't you been able to work through? Or, alternatively, isn't this great practice? This is about as sophisticated as my maths gets, but here you have it. An opportunity for students to share their work with the class in a very simple, quick way. An opportunity for you to allow discussion, facilitate discussion led by student work rather than by you at the front, expecting them to get on with the task and then feed back to you. This way you get a much more significant kind of feedback. You see exactly what they're doing on their bits of paper, and you're giving them the opportunity to discuss, justify, explain what it is they're doing. And that really, in its simplest form, are some of the things that you can do with a one iPad classroom. If I was going to do a first lesson just with the one iPad, those are the types of things I would experiment with. I would use explain everything as my base point, because it does everything that you could already do, just a little bit better. And then I would interact with the other things that you already know, YouTube, iBooks, Prezi, whatever it is. If there's any sort of specific apps that you like, fire those up in the first few times that you use it. Get your students to engage with something really sort of flashy and exciting and engaging. And then really quickly, within that first lesson, first couple of lessons, start taking photographs of their work, putting them up on the board, and get discussion flowing, because that is what makes the iPad and the fact that you can get that screen up on in front of the rest of the class really, really powerful. So I hope that's offered you some good ideas about what you might do in a one iPad classroom in those first few lessons. Thanks very much.